not dramatic, but I feel like this week has well and truly resurrected me. Not to say that I don't enjoy summer and sunshine and warm weather, but there is just something about days like today that just give me so much life. I'm sitting inside my cozy house with a hot cup of coffee in my hands, keeping me toasty. I can see raindrops and hear raindrops pattering on the window, and I can also see the tree outside of my office just blowing around in the wind. And I just know that it's freezing cold out there, but it's super cozy in here, and I absolutely love and live for that feeling. It is just unbeatable. I always love the arrival of autumn because I feel like no matter how much you enjoy summer, I'm always ready for it to start to get that little bit cooler as we reach the end of August. I'm just ready for it to get colder and to stop feeling sweaty all of the time. But this year, autumn really kept us waiting because we had such an unseasonably warm September and October even. We were getting like 20 degrees Celsius weather, which is both concerning and also just a little bit ridiculous because by the time October arrives you just want it to be cold. So it really did keep us waiting this year, but then suddenly this week the weather has switched and autumn has arrived in a flourish because it is not only just like a little bit autumnal, there is a full-on storm going on outside which is just completely cementing the cozy vibes. And as if I needed this excuse, this storm has a name which has presented an opportunity to me that I simply just could not resist, because the storm that we have in the UK this weekend is called Storm Babet. And as a Gilmore Girls fan, a storm called Babet was just the perfect excuse to finally restart the Gilmore Girls rewatch, which I love to do every single autumn. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Gilmore Girls is the sort of show that you have to wait until it feels like Gilmore Girls outside, and the Gilmore Girls feeling is cold weather outside with a cozy house where you're sitting down with a cup of tea and ready to get cozy under the blankets and put Gilmore Girls on. And although obviously Gilmore Girls happens like across the whole year, I personally only really want to watch it when it gets to autumn winter time, so I've been waiting impatiently for this weather to arrive, and it finally has. And not only that, but it sealed the deal by having a storm called Storm Babet to say, hey, this weekend is the weekend that you can put Gilmore Girls on. So with that said, obviously we have a stormy weekend ahead of us, and that means that I don't really know what we're going to be doing. Most of our weekends we're like trying to go out, do hiking, get a bit of running in, maybe do a bike ride, but it's a little bit up in the air as to whether or not we're going to be brave enough to go out and do any hiking this weekend, because it really does look like the weather is not going to be good for it. Although saying that, last weekend we went for a hike in the Lake District. Started out really sunny. When we got to the summit, it started blowing a wind stronger than I've ever felt before, and then it snowed, which was ridiculous. Although I was saying that I was ready for colder weather, I also wasn't quite expecting snow in October. So we've been all over the place with weather, which means that we may well end up going out for a walk tomorrow. I guess we'll wait and see. But for now, all I can confirm is that I'm going to be trying to embrace the cozy spirit this weekend with a Gilmore Girls rewatch and also a little bit of baking, which brings me on to my next point, because I am about to try and make a carrot cake. Now, I am on such a carrot cake kick at the moment that I feel like my expectations are really high, because I have been trying to find carrot cake every single weekend, which is such a fun thing to do because I just absolutely love it, and seeing all of the different variations. Seems to be a cake that is quite commonly vegan. When a cafe has like one vegan cake option, I feel like it's often either a chocolate cake or a carrot cake, and so it's great because you get to try loads of different ones. But it's not so great for the bank balance because I'm easily spending like £30 a weekend on cafe trips, because, you know, seems like it's just a slice of cake, but before you know it, you've got yourself a slice of cake, I've got J1, we've both got a coffee, and then you've spent like £15 on a single coffee trip. You're going for a walk on Sunday as well, oh, we'll go for another cafe, and before you know it, £30 a weekend on coffee, which is a little bit ridiculous. So this weekend I'm trying to perfect my own vegan carrot cake recipe so that I can stop spending so much money in cafes. So with that said, I'm going to kickstart my weekend with some baking, and then while the cake starts to cook, I think I'll make myself a little coffee, another one, because who said caffeine was a thing, and then start the Gilmore Girls rewatch. I'm going out for dinner later on this evening because it was my brother's birthday this week, and I'm also putting a commitment out there right here and now that this weekend I'm going to try and do some reading. Now, of course, on most of my videos I do reading, so it doesn't seem like it's that much of a big deal, but this year has just not been my year for reading whatsoever. It is October and I've only read 26 books this year, which for some people might seem like a lot. For a lot of people who watch videos on this channel and do a lot of reading, 26 probably seems like an abysmal amount of books, and that's kind of how it feels to me because I'm used to reading so much more. But I don't know if it's just because of work priorities, social life, trying to do more like outdoorsy fitness things like running, swimming, cycling, hiking that are taking up more of my free time, but I just have really struggled this year to get into a good rhythm of reading and making it part of my regular routine. And I've also gotten in a really bad habit of finding a bit of time to do some reading, starting a new book and then just forgetting about it. So I really do want to just start trying to do little and often, and you know, it might not be reading a book a week, which is kind of what I was used to before, but equally just trying to make it part of my routine and fit it in with my other priorities so that I don't end up having read nothing for 2 months, which is the situation that I'm currently in. With that said, I've let myself pick a couple of books for this weekend so that I can start to get back into the swing of things. The first one is one of the books that has very sadly ended up on the started but didn't finish pile, and that is The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. This is a book which is essentially the Great British Bake Off meets murder mystery, and I really struggled to say Great British Bake Off just then for some reason, but it's basically a Bake Off style murder mystery, which I feel like combines everything that I enjoy. I love murder mystery and I love Bake Off, so what's not to enjoy about this book? I've so far read 60 pages and enjoyed those 60 pages, but just haven't managed to get myself to pick it up again. But since I'm doing some baking this afternoon, I feel like I'll be in the mood and it will get me right back on track with this book because I have a feeling I am going to really love it. Then the other book I have is a new release, which is The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary, my personal favourite romance author, because I feel like she just has such a great blend of the types of things that I love to read in a romance. They're ultimately like light-hearted and hopeful, but there's usually something a little bit darker or more gritty sort of blended into the plot that doesn't overtake it but just adds a bit of extra depth. There's usually multiple perspectives or different timelines, and overall I just feel like she has such a fun way of writing romance that I personally really love. This is about two colleagues that absolutely hate each other. They work together at a hotel which is, I think, falling into financial ruin, and so together, although they hate each other, their shared love of this hotel kind of brings them on a mission to try and save it, and I think they're probably going to end up finding romance along the way. So I'm excited about both of these books, but for now it is time to go and start making some carrot cake.
I can feel it. The breeze brings goosebumps to my skin. To
cake is ready, and I have to say I'm pretty pleased with how this has turned out. I was kind of worried when I got the cake out of the oven that as soon as it was cooling, it felt like it was losing a lot of its volume and sinking, and I was worried it was going to end up being super flat. And although I think it probably has sunk a little bit and could maybe be a bit fluffier, on the whole I'm not at all disappointed with this. I feel like it's turned out very well, and with vegan cakes it can be so hard to figure out how to make them rise and stay fluffy, so I'm quite pleased with how these have turned out, all things considered. The frosting, on the other hand, leaves a little something to be desired. I'm sure it will taste nice, but I just for the life of me could not get the texture of this buttercream to stay thick. I was really struggling, and I was using such a simple buttercream like combination. It was literally just vegan butter, 1 part, and then 2 parts icing sugar, so really basic, but for some reason no matter how much icing sugar I was adding, it was just getting thick and then kind of going really thin again. So I actually ended up having to do 2 batches. The second batch is the one that we're working with. Wasn't perfect, but equally better than the first, but on the whole, very happy with how these have turned out. But of course, the proof is in the pudding, quite literally. So I've got myself a slice ready to taste test. However, I'm personally of the opinion that you cannot have cake without tea. So I'm also going to make a cup of tea, because another obsession of mine at the moment, as well as carrot cake, is this Marks and Spencer's shortbread tea. I'm a big fan of the Yorkshire tea biscuit brew, but my friend Em posted about shortbread tea and I knew that I obviously had to try it. I got this literally like last week and I'm already like halfway through the box because it is just so good. It's very similar to the biscuit tea, but I would say it is almost like a weird word to use for tea, but it is like buttery and creamier, very shortbready, and it's really nice. So I'm going to let that tea brew for a second to get the flavours, and while I do, we're going to dig into the carrot cake. So fingers crossed it tastes as good as it smells. Got loads of walnuts in here as well because I love a nutty carrot cake. Okay, cheers. Okay, I'm pleased with that. I feel like the mixed spice and cinnamon flavour is just my favourite bit about carrot cake, and that that is coming through. Delicious. Okay. Oat milk for the tea. And then I'm going to start doing some reading. Now I was planning to go straight back in with The Golden Spoon, but on the subject of my friend Em, not only has she recommended me tea, she also sent me a message earlier today and said that The Wake Up Call is up there, tied currently as her second favourite, or tied for first place as her favourite Beth O'Leary book. So that has made me really excited to read it. So I think I'm going to settle down and make a start on The Wake Up Call, and I will of course share my thoughts as soon as I've gotten into it. But for now, I'm going to finish this tea, finish my carrot cake, and do some reading. I'm sure that the meal I'm going to be going to this evening is going to be lovely, but at this moment in time the fire is on, this room is so cozy, and outside is freezing cold, so I'm really struggling with the motivation to get out of the house. But I am ready and about to leave in just a minute. But I wanted to give a quick reading update because I managed to read 55 pages of The Wake Up Call, and so far obviously very near the beginning of the book still, so not much has happened, but I am enjoying it, and like I predicted, it is a multi multi-perspective book. So we have two characters, Izzy and Lucas, who, like I said, are colleagues who don't like each other. But what I didn't realise was that the book was going to start with their Christmas cards to each other from the previous year. So we get Izzy's Christmas card essentially professing her love for Lucas, and then Lucas just writes a simple "Merry Christmas, Izzy" from Lucas. And so you get the intention that there's like this tension between these two characters, where I'm gonna guess there's miscommunication here, and that maybe Lucas didn't get this profession of love from Izzy, but she assumes that he did and ignored it, and so they then basically hate each other. But at the moment in time, we don't really know what's gone on, so that's all we have to go off of. Then it skips forward to the present day, where they are trying to save this hotel that is falling into ruin. Both physically is literally crumbling, and then financially falling into ruin, and they both really want to save it because despite their hate for each other, they love working there. So I'm really excited to see where it goes, because no matter what context I read miscommunication in, whether it be like a Sally Rooney type of miscommunication or like a fun romance miscommunication, I always just really love seeing that trope play out. So I think I'm going to enjoy this one, and depending on how tired I am when I get back from the meal later, I might try and do a little bit more reading. My weekend of embracing the autumn vibes continues, but in a slightly different way today, because while yesterday was so grey, so rainy, so windy, so cold, today we've woken up to beautiful blue skies, and it seems like Storm Babet decided that one day was enough and she's kind of just moved on to somewhere else, because today is gorgeous, so lovely, but equally freezing cold, because it's one of those days that is just so like crisp and clear, and the perfect day to go out for a bike ride. So that is exactly what we're doing, and also the reason why I have this ugly low ponytail going on, because I need to be able to fit a helmet on my head. But it was just too beautiful of a morning to not go out and make the most of it, so that is the plan for right now. But I did want to give you a bit of a reading update before we head out of the house, because I am loving the wake up call. I'm now on page 116, and I just think this is such a lovely book. I think it is the sort of romance that, like a lot of romances, is really obvious how it's gonna end, but I just love the journey. And it's kind of that cheesy saying about like, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey to get there. And that is how I feel about Beth O'Leary's romances, because I just think that they are so fun, and even though you know the two characters are going to end up together and there's no surprise there, it's fun to sort of think about how they end up getting to that conclusion, and I'm excited to see it unfold, because these characters are now kind of forced into working together a lot more closely than they would have ever chosen to before, and because of that there's a lot of tension, but also a little bit of flirting going on, and I feel like you can start to see these seeds of romance being sown, but they're also still quite resistant to it, and I just absolutely love that. I know romance isn't for everyone, but for me, I just think it is so much fun. And I did also tab one of the pages, not for anything major, aside from the fact that on page 93, one of the main characters, Izzy, is talking to one of her friends about some of her terrible exes, and her exes are called Tristan and Dean. And I don't know whether, because of Storm Babet, I'm just like extra focused in on Gilmore Girls this weekend, but I feel like that is definitely another sign that this was the perfect weekend to start the Gilmore Girls rewatch, and also fun to know. Maybe I'm just making the assumption, but I'm going to guess that Beth O'Leary must be a fan of Gilmore Girls to have used both of those names as exes for our female main character. So, enjoying this book and definitely planning to do some more reading later. On the agenda, aside from going for a bike ride, is quite urgent. My kettle is broken, which in general is no good, but especially now that it is colder, I feel like I need hot drinks all of the time, and it's basically just shorting out, so you turn it on, the light flicks on, but then it just cuts off after 2 seconds and doesn't boil the water. So we need to go and get a new kettle ASAP, because quite frankly, my life is just not worth living if I don't have hot drinks. genuinely don't think we could have picked a better morning for a bike ride if we had tried. It was absolutely perfect out there today because the sun was shining, but the ground was really like misty and there was like a low fog that was just starting to lift. The sun was shining, which I feel like made the fog seem even more like mystical, and it was just absolutely perfect. We were cycling along roads that we've driven on before, but I feel like in a car, although you can appreciate that somewhere is beautiful, you're moving so much faster that it's kind of gone within a couple of seconds, whereas obviously on the bike, I at least am much slower, which means that I feel like you have a lot more time to actually appreciate your surroundings, and it was just such a perfect morning for a bike ride. It was also a practical bike ride because we needed to go to some outdoor clothing shops because we've realised that I personally have almost got no winter hiking gear. I've got stuff that I use pretty much all year round, but the one thing that I'm really lacking in is like good quality waterproofs. And I will admit, from an aesthetic position, I've always been put off of women's hiking trousers because quite frankly I think that they are ugly a lot of the time, and I am someone that wears leggings most of the time, so I like something that is like fairly tightly fitted and tapered. I don't like loose trousers or like wide legs around boots because I just feel like I end up getting wet trousers all the time. So basically I've just been put off of them from practical purpose and also from an aesthetic purpose, but I've realised that I just need to get over that and get some because I really do need some good waterproofs. Last weekend we went on this hike where it snowed at the summit and my legs, which were in leggings, just got absolutely soaked through, and that was definitely the pushover that I needed to just like get some hiking clothes essentially. So picked up some hiking trousers, which I like because they are tapered, which means that I don't have the issue of the wide legs around my boots that are going to end up picking up loads of mud and water, but they're also waterproof and just a little bit more practical for wintertime than leggings are. So a successful trip, but we've had to get home quite quickly and do a quick turnaround, shower, obviously got changed, and now we're ready to go out again because we're going out for another meal for my brother's birthday. Was a meal with my mum's family on Friday night, and then today we're out with my dad's side of the family. And I will say that cycling just works up such an appetite, so I am starving and so excited to eat some good food for lunch. So with that said, it's pretty much time to head out of the door because we've been on such a tight turnaround. Haven't actually had time to put Operation Find a New Kettle into action yet, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we will finish the meal before shops close today, so we'll have a chance to get a new one before the day is out. But I'll keep you updated on that. For now, it's time to go for food. New kettle has officially been acquired, and thank God for that, because today is one of those days where I feel like I've woken up feeling more exhausted, quite considerably more exhausted in fact, than I was when I actually went to bed last night. So I'm feeling like I need all the caffeine I can get my hands on today. But right now I'm just going to enjoy this very lovely cup of coffee and settle down to do some more reading of the wake up call, which I'm just absolutely loving. I also feel like because I was feeling, I don't want to say a bit downtrodden this morning, but just so exhausted, I felt like I needed a bit of a pick-me-up. And one of the things that has been picking me up is that I'm getting so many TikToks telling me how long it is until Christmas, and I've worked out that there are only 5 Saturdays between now and when I'm going to be getting my Christmas tree, because this year I think December starts on a Friday, which means that on Saturday the 2nd of December is when we'll be going to pick up our Christmas tree. So there are only 5 Saturdays between now and the day that we get to put up our Christmas tree, and if that doesn't make you feel excited, then I do not know what will. So that kind of leads me on to one of the reasons I'm loving the wake up call so much. I realised I started that tangent because I was talking about the book and then completely got distracted by Christmas. But this is a book which is not a Christmassy book, but is set around Christmas time, and I feel like that is just perfect for this time of year when I at least am starting to get really excited for the upcoming festive season, but you're not quite ready to pick up like a full-on Christmassy themed book yet. And I feel like this is the perfect balance of having like a little bit of festivity and having that like lead up to Christmas vibe, but without being so in your face Christmassy that it feels like you can only read it in December. So with that said, I'm excited for the upcoming festive season, and so I'm going to enjoy some of this book and embrace those early festive season vibes whilst also taking on some caffeine and trying to feel a little bit more alive, because quite frankly I feel dead right now. Today is the sort of day that I would describe as cloud, in the sense that it is not a cloudy day, because I feel like cloudy gives the implication that you can actually see individual clouds and they have like shape and character and actually make the sky interesting to look at. Cloud days are days where the whole sky is just a big sheet of white or grey, and it's so gloomy and so uninteresting, and also does absolutely no favours to my complexion, because as a pale person, when the sky is just pure white, I feel like it just reflects off me and makes me look like I'm about an inch away from death, which is not the vibe. But despite the gloominess of the day, I'm actually feeling very happy because I just finished up reading The Wake Up Call, which I can now confidently say is my new favourite Beth O'Leary book. And because Beth O'Leary is my favourite romance author, that also gives this book the title of my new favourite romance book. I obviously went into this with very high expectations because I know that I love every single thing that Beth O'Leary has written, but I didn't expect it to just come in there and just blow me away like it did and just completely take the crown as my favourite of her books, but it really did. I absolutely loved The Flatshare, which was her debut novel, and I feel like that's the one that I would go back to most often and say is my favourite of her books, although there are obviously elements of all of her books that I love. But I think what I like so much about The Flatshare is that it is this unlikely romance and this like building of a relationship between characters, seeing things from both perspectives and seeing how things are kind of like miscommunicated or people are like nervous to say things to each other. And I just like how simplistic it is, in the sense that it really is just about the building of a relationship between two people. And I feel like the vibe of The Flatshare is really prevalent in this one, because it does sort of bring it back to that simple two people getting both perspectives and seeing this relationship unfold like before your eyes. But this one had, I guess, a little bit more like spice and pizzazz, because unlike The Flatshare, which is about two people who don't know each other and then end up in a flatshare situation, as the title would suggest, this one is obviously about colleagues who know and very much dislike each other. So a slightly different vibe, but I feel like had the same essence of what I love so much about The Flat Share, but kind of took it to a new and different level, which I personally really enjoyed. And I feel like it really sort of hyped up the com side of rom-com, which I absolutely adored and was exactly what I needed on this very chilly autumnal weekend. So if you haven't already, I would so highly advise reading this book. I think it was so wonderful, so fun, so uplifting, and like I said earlier, the perfect bridge between summer rom-coms, because I feel like that is the sort of season that you associate rom-coms with, and like cozy festiveness without being too in your face with the Christmassiness of the story. So I feel like it's that perfect bridge for this time of year when we are in between seasons, and I loved it. I've also downloaded the audiobook because the female character Izzy is voiced by Jessie Cave, who is also an author. She wrote a novel called Sunset, but she's best known for playing Lavender Brown in the Harry Potter films, and she also has a podcast and is absolutely hilarious. So I'm also planning to listen to the audiobook version, and I will be sure to let you know what I think of it. But for now, I feel like finishing this book has brought me very nicely to the conclusion of this vlog. So I hope you enjoyed seeing my autumnal weekend, embracing the cozy season and finding a new favourite book. If you've read anything wonderful lately, especially if you think it's the sort of book that would get someone out of a reading slump, then leave me a comment down below and give me a recommendation, because this book has really got me back into reading and I do not want to lose steam. So all and any recommendations welcome. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.